Hello, my friend. Today I want to speak about spirituality, the what and why of spirituality. I've been going around in my head, I should talk about something more concrete, right? About meditation or what to do with your emotions or how to get to know yourself and all these self-development things. And they are important. That's for sure. And still I have to start with this, with spirituality. I was a little afraid that this talk might be too brainy, too theoretical, and maybe it will be. Let's see. And I don't get around this word. Like I cannot avoid this word. It's one of these words, spirituality, like enlightenment or awakening or the self with a capital S, right? God, love, one of these big words. And it appears that, or I have the impression that the term spirituality is not so trendy right now. Maybe it's just my impression. And but I find it important. I think it's important. Now, why do I think it's important? Because when you would ask me what I like to talk about and think about and what I'm interested in, spirituality would be one of the first words. And I like to talk to you about this. I like to maybe clarify some things or help you maybe a little step on your path, if that's possible. And what path is that? It's the spiritual path again, right? Now we could also start with enlightenment, but let's start with spirituality. Now spirituality is a word that was originally used by the Christians in the Christian tradition, and it meant living a life that gets you closer to embodying or becoming more similar to the image of God. So that would say we start out as just the human aspect, but we also have the godly aspect in us, and living the spiritual life brings that aspect out more. And later on, as time progressed, this term spirituality was used by the self-development or human potential movement, or and has been used for a big variety of practices, all aimed at getting closer with your inner self, you could say, realizing something inside, and has nowadays mostly has been separated from organized traditions. So spirituality might be more about this path as separate from organized religion. All these things you could look up in Wikipedia, it would probably be much more precise than what I have to say. What I find important about this word and the insight in it is to say there's spirit, and on the other hand there's matter. Spirit, matter. So we have the body and we have the soul, right? Which is like your spiritual aspect. And now many people would, you cannot argue about that, right? There is nothing that can be measured. If it could be measured, if spirit could be measured, it would be part of matter. All these measurement devices, all these modern sciences, they're also intent on measuring. And it's very easy to say something that cannot be measured is not real, right? And nowadays many things can be measured that we weren't able to measure just 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago. But this thing, the spirit, can never be measured. If it could be measured, it wouldn't be the spirit, it would be matter. Just, these are two different things. Or one is actually not a thing. Things relate to matter. The other is not a thing. And as such, it doesn't exist in the normal way that we would term existence. So you can, like, how to argue, how to talk about this, right? Even talking about it kind of goes around in a circle and doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It cannot make sense for the brain. And still we intuit it. We intuit it, right? We intuit it. Yeah. So we have the impression, or we have a remembrance, and something in us longs to get there, and then we find other people that have gone part of the path or come to a certain realization, and they tell us the good news. Oh, come here, right? And then we go on the spiritual path. And I like that word because I find it important to remember this again and again, that we might be doing all sorts of practices that also have value in the material world and help us out. And surely the body, how we are with the body and social interaction, all these things are important. And in the end, there's like this end goal, or it's not really a goal. This thing we call spirit that we come closer to. It's a very subtle, very quiet vibration, you could say. And that's why we need to really quieten our minds to get a taste of that and really open up. Like when we're too enclosed and too much heaviness in our body and in our emotions, you cannot really get to it. There might be certain sudden breakthroughs where the light just like, or God just breaks through, right? And there's like an awakening, a mini awakening happening without you having done much to it. But usually for most people, these don't last, because the heaviness of the inner resistances and blockages is too strong. And as we go on this path, I find it good to keep on remembering this. There is something that is separate from matter. It's spirit. I'm spirit. We are spirit. It's the good news, because that also means that the body dies and all will be well. Now we cannot say for certain without mind, right? Nobody can really reassure us of that. And nobody can prove the existence of spirit. As I said before, we cannot argue about it. And even putting it into words is kind of useless. So it's kind of pointless what I'm doing. And still it's so important. That's the funny thing. That's the funny thing. All right. I think there's no more to say. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.